So light is used for one thing, right? Light is really used for one thing. Light is used so that we can see things, right? I mean, that's what it's for. Especially you think about artificial light, so something like this, whether it be, a headlamp, which these things, man, these are game changers. You put your headlamp on, you get your light going. I don't even know, is it on now? You kidding me? That's awesome. Okay, but I have backups. So whether you think about a flashlight or what, I mean, these things are, like, the LED lights are so bright now. Great flashlight. Thank you, Larry Heiler. This is from him. So great flashlight. And we have, little lanterns like this. Light is for one thing. It's to put light where it isn't. It's to make something visible where it's not visible. It's so that we can take a shadow, take the darkness, and cast it out so we can see what is there. That's what light is for. Now, if you think about light as well, it can be very comfortable. It can really play a lot in the role of comfort. It can also be kind of uncomfortable, too, in this sense. But think about this. So you're laying in bed at night, and you hear the bump. Your wife goes, "Hey, what was that?" And you say, "I don't know, who cares?" And she goes, "No, really, what was that?" I don't know, I'll go find out. So I grab my glasses, and the next thing I grab is the light. I grab my flashlight, this one right here. This sits on my nightstand. It's right next to my glasses, right next to my phone, and I grab it, and I'll go walk into the house. What's the bump? What's the bump? What's the bump? And so we walk through there and, take the flashlight, and after you hear the bump of the sound, you go, "Oh, it was just the fan of the air conditioner. Oh, it was just this. It was just that. No big deal." So we get comfort in shining the light into the darkness there, and we see it's been illuminated, whatever it was that we thought might be scary. We find out that, hey, it's comfortable, it's no big deal, it's safe, it's just the cat, the dog, the whatever. Now imagine now, though, you're laying in bed, and you hear the bump. And you snap out of bed this time, and you say, "What's that?" Put your glasses on, you grab your flashlight, you start walking through the house, and there's a bad guy. So light has done two interesting things here. It has shown us what we need to see in both instances. One, it was just the cat or the dog or the air conditioner or whatever, no big deal. But in the second instance, it has shown us something that we need to see, we need to deal with. Now it's decision time. Here's the bad guy. Light is, the purpose of it is to show us what we need to see. That's what light does. It shows us what is unseen until the light hits it, because darkness covers it, darkness shrouds it. We are unable to see then what happens because there is no light. Now, what's interesting is we have to understand that Jesus, he uses the illustration of light to talk about something that's important to him. Because we have to understand that really light is not a complicated thing. You turn a light on, darkness goes away. Darkness exists until the light comes in. It's a very simple thing. Light gets rid of darkness and makes things able to be seen. And Jesus uses this very simple, very rudimentary, very elementary, very easy to grasp idea of light when he's talking about something in the ministry, the kingdom, the gospel, the reality of truth. Now, why is that? Because I think he wants the people he's talking to truly get to understand this idea that the gospel is light. So open with me to Luke chapter 8, verse 16. Let's read the whole text here. We'll read 16, 17, and 18. "No one lights a lamp and then covers it with a bowl or hides it under a bed. A lamp is placed on a stand where its light can be seen by all who enter the house." Verse 17 says, "For all that is secret will eventually be brought into the open, and everything that is concealed will be brought to light and made known to all." Verse 18 reads, "So pay attention to how you hear. To those who listen to my teaching, more understanding will be given. But for those of you that are not listening, even what they think they understand will be taken away from them." So looking at the text this morning, I just kind of want to look at the verses here. Let's just teach the text. Let's just kind of be in class here for a second. We're just kind of making sure we understand what it says. Verse 16 says, no one lights a lamp, then covers it with a bowl or hides it under a bed. It's a very simple principle here. If you're going to light a lamp, pretend this is a lamp. So if you're going to light the flashlight, that means you need it. You would never light the flashlight You're covered up. Just don't light the flashlight. You don't need it. If that's what you're going to do, don't turn it on. It's not any good to you. The little lantern here, cool little thing. I would never light this, and I'd never cover it with a bowl. Because if I do that, I just won't turn it on. That's what I'll do. Because that's what Jesus says. He says we would never light a lamp and make it so that it is hidden. We are always going to have this lamp so that it can be seen by all. Very simple idea. The people in the crowd, as Jesus is saying, is going, well, yeah? Do you do something else with the light? I mean, that's what's going on here. It's this very simple idea that light is used to make things seen. Now there's the Jesus connection. This reality that Jesus isn't talking about lights and flashlights and bowls and beds. That's not what he's talking about. He's making this connection that there's something more here to this story, this parable. There's a lesson to be learned. You see, Jesus is subtly saying, I'm the light. I'm the light. What I'm teaching you, the truth I have for you, what you know as the gospel, that's the light. You look at John chapter 9, verse 5, he says, while I am here, I am the light of the world. So Jesus, in no uncertain terms and no questionable statements, literally says that he is the light. And so maybe when we're reading this parable, we don't put that together, but you jump to John chapter 9, verse 5, and boom, there it is. He says, I am the light of the world. While I am here, I am the light. And so we have no question that in this parable, when he says a light is used to light the whole room so that when people walk in, they can see, he's talking about himself and the revelation of his word, of his reality, of the truth and the plan of God. God has sent Jesus to be the light of the world, to shed all the darkness away and to show people what they could not see before. So now you've got to jump to verse 17. It says, for all that is secret will eventually be brought into the open, and everything that is concealed will be brought to light and made known for all. Now, you got to put yourself in first century church here, first century situation where Jesus is teaching to all these Jews. You see, they have come from the background and the reality of the Old Testament. All they have ever seen, all they have ever read has been the Old Testament. They are not privy to the New Testament because it's being written and preached to them in real time, live time, right there. I mean, they're experiencing Jesus teaching the New Testament. And so all they have ever had is the Old Testament. And the Old Testament writes in this mystery kind of idea. And the Old Testament draws this idea, this picture, this image of a mystery all throughout the Old Testament. I mean, it's there just constantly. And anytime we come across the idea or the nuance or the word or the picture of mystery in the Old Testament, it always means one thing. You can't see it now, but you will later. It's always this idea in the Old Testament that you don't understand it now, but the mystery is you will. And so the Old Testament has, as they have read this, as many of them have memorized it, as it has become part of their life and they share it with their children and all this, they can't help but feel the sense that there is something that they do not see yet. And now in Luke chapter 8, Jesus says, I am the light. All that darkness that you have ever felt, I shine the light on it. And think about what the Old Testament has said from the very beginning. We messed up. I mean, from page 2 of the Bible, we sinned. We brought sin into this world. We broke it. We took what God had made perfection and made it imperfection. We took what God had made as holy and we made it unholy. We took what God had made as righteous and made it unrighteous by inviting sin into this place. And so you can imagine from the very beginning of the Bible, there is a sense of darkness. And even throughout the Bible, there's the reality that there's got to be a plan, right? There's got to be a plan. Jesus sheds light. So here's what I want to do. Go ahead and turn the lights off, Sean, if you would. Turn off the lights for me. I think this is one of those where we have to be visual learners today. I am really bummed out. Hey! Look at that. It's a good day. Okay. All right. I turned it off. I did that. That was me. Okay. This darkness, this is the Old Testament. This is the Old Testament. This is the way they were living in a sense of spiritual reality. This is what it felt like as they were reading the Old Testament. They knew it was dark. They knew that there was something missing. They knew God had something in vision for them, but they couldn't see it because it was dark. Now, you know what? If we're being honest, it may have actually looked a little something like this. It may have looked a little something like that, because as the Old Testament is reading and you progress through it, you read the Psalms, you read the prophets, the reality is, I think you could see that there is something. That God says, there's a light here, and I'm going to show it to you someday, but it's not doing any good yet, because he hadn't revealed it. And so this is the Old Testament. I think people could see as they read the Old Testament, they memorized the Old Testament, there's a light, but it is covered. And so now we get to the New Testament where Jesus is teaching, and he's saying, well, why would you have a light and cover it with a bowl and put it under the bed? The light is designed for all to see. It's designed for all to feel, for all to have what is unseen now seen. You see, when Jesus came into the world, this is what happened. The shroud is removed, the cover is taken away, the bowl is gone, and the light is shining. And this is the revelation of Jesus. When Jesus came, he came to be what light is used for. He didn't come for some people to hide it or some people to not show it off or whatever. He came as the light. John says, I am the light of the world, meaning that anybody can see me, because I came to do what light does. Shine in the darkness. My intention is to shine in all the dark corners of everywhere, is to cast away all the darkness of the world, is to shine in the darkest corners of everybody's heart and lives and realities. This is what Jesus came to do. He does it. He does it. And when we think about this, and you think about the Old Testament time, all of those secrets, all of those confusions that people had when they read Isaiah, what is Isaiah talking about when he says a lamb like led to the slaughter and that he'll be hung for our transgressions? All this kind of stuff. I mean, all those Psalms, all those Isaiahs, all those Jeremiahs, where it's drawing this vivid picture of what is to come. And now Jesus says, ding, 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 you see it, don't you? You see the light. Whoa. And then you think about what he says in verse 17, where it says, all those things unseen will be seen. Well, yeah, it's really cool when you read about it in the Old Testament. You see the prophecies coming true, and the light is shining, it's really neat. But then you think about this on a more personal term. This light is really shining on me. Like everything that Jesus taught, teaches, everything he writes, everything he says, like it is a bright light. And it starts to do something really uncomfortable. It starts to shine in all those little dark places of our own hearts, of our own realities where we don't really care for Jesus to point out our mistakes in those little areas. We've tucked that away. Like we tucked that in that nice little dark corner, that dark little closet of our heart, and we've even said the words, I'll never tell anybody that. I'll never let anybody know I did that. And yet then there's this persistent little annoying light that is doing what light is supposed to do. Shine in the darkness. We don't want that. That's uncomfortable. Funny thing is, so Jesus goes on. In verse 18, he makes an interesting point. He says, so pay attention to how you hear. To those who listen to my teaching, more understanding will be given. But for those who are not listening, even what they think they understand will be taken away from them. You see, now Jesus makes an interesting little lesson here in verse 18. He seems to indicate that this light Jesus has made available for all. But there seems to be like this two-way street with it. that Jesus wants all to see it, but sometimes we have to go after it. And Jesus says you need to be careful how you hear it and how you understand, because the more that you hear, the more that you understand, the more I will reveal. So the more we chase after the light, the more that we want to see the light, the more the light is going to show us. And that's where it gets uncomfortable again, because, we get in here and, we start to kind of, oh, that's cool. That's I can see now. Wow, that's neat. Oh, wow. Oh, wait a minute. Whoa, 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 whoa. Don't want to see that. And so we get to this level of comfort where we've decided that what we're seeing is enough. And we stop chasing after God. And we're content with what God has shown us. We're content with what we've learned so far. And so we just kind of do one of these numbers right here. We don't let Jesus' light truly show, truly shine. Jesus tells this parable almost identically later on in Luke. It's Luke chapter 11. Luke chapter 11, it's verse 33. I know it's dark out there. I'll read it to you. No one lights a lamp and then hides it or puts it under a basket. Okay, that sounds familiar, right? Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where its light can be seen by all who enter the house. That's exactly what Jesus said. Verse 34 now says, your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. Now, this is different. Jesus teaches a whole new lesson in this. Your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light. But when it is unhealthy, your body is filled with darkness. So when the eyes are healthy, the body's filled with light. When the eyes are unhealthy, the body is filled with darkness. Make sure that the light you think you have is not actually darkness. If you are filled with light with no dark corners, then your whole life will be radiant as though a floodlight were filling you with life, with light. So here's the interesting thing. We understand what our eyes are for, and our eyes are actually, they're a really amazing organ in our body. They're very sophisticated, they're very unique, but their entire purpose is to absorb light. That's how we see, because all the things we see are reflections of light. Vision is just light seen in different spectrums, and our eyes are this amazing filter that take all these lights in, and then they send that data up to our brain, and this complicated process of translation goes on, and our brain says, okay, that's what you're seeing. And so if you think about what our eyes do, all they do is absorb light. And when our eyes are healthy, when our eyes are absorbing light, our body begins to emit it. Isn't that interesting? And Jesus tells this exact same parable almost. But he adds this little nuance in there. It says, when your eyes take in the light, you begin to reflect it. Which really begs the question. Are we taking in the light? Or are we content right there? Or are we insanely, crazily, voraciously seeking the light, so that we become, just as the New Living Translation says, a floodlight. A floodlight. Because we can't emit light for anybody else to see unless we are seeing the light and letting it shine into the dark corners of our heart and giving those places to God and giving those things that we said we would never. Church, we will never look like this if we aren't seeking it. There's so many unique ways that we get to follow hard after the light of Jesus, that we get to see what he has for us. That comes in our daily reading of the Bible. That's why we teach that. It comes in our daily quiet time that we give to Jesus. That's why we teach that. It comes in your daily communication with the Father. That's why we teach that. It's in those moments where we chase hard after the light, where we begin to take the bowl off. And it's in those moments where God begins to say, hey, I'm so glad you're coming to me. I'm so glad you're taking the bowl off. I'm so glad you're starting to see the light. Now let me shine on a few things. And it's in those moments where we say, now wait a minute, I'm getting sunburned here, God. You see, all those little places, they haven't seen sun in a long time, you know. They're not really tan. They're not really ready. I'm getting sunburned. And God goes, it'll heal. But God, it really hurts. It's really uncomfortable because, you see, I really think that the life I'm living right now is pretty comfortable. And I really like the things I'm doing. I really like the things I have. And it really kind of hurts. It'll heal. No, God, you don't understand. I said I would never tell anybody that. It will heal, and then you will shine a light. I don't know if I want that, God. I kind of like it like that. I like to know it's there. I like to know I can get to it if I want. But I just soon leave it like that. And Jesus is going, that's not why I came. I came to be the light. Now here's where the calling of the church gets interesting. Because in no uncertain terms, in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus calls his people, his followers, his disciples, the light. He calls them the salt and the light. In Matthew 5:16, it says, let your light shine before men so that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. So Jesus said, I came as the light, and I expect you to be the same. And I expect your light to shine in a manner that reflects who I am. And the interesting thing about Matthew 5:16, he's very clear. It says, let your light shine before men so they may see your good deeds, your good works, your good actions. Because when we see the light of Jesus and when we allow it to shine on our heart, and when we then transform that from our eyes to our actions and we become the floodlight of Jesus, that means that we will look like the light. That means we will act like the light. That means our deeds, our works, our actions, our behavior, and our life will be that of the light. And when we look like the light, people will praise our Father in heaven. That just by looking like the light, just by living like the light and being like the light, we can get people to praise our Father in heaven. So, are you this? Maybe you're this. You're just starting to get into this Jesus thing. You're still learning a lot. You're still not really sure. You see that the light's there and it's starting to get a little bit painful, but man, it's exciting. And you see what God's going to do with your life. You see what God's going to do with your broken, dark, shadowy story. And it's going to hurt more and more and more and more and more as you take this off. But the reality is, it's the only way. Or maybe this is you. And this is where you think you're going to stay. And you think this is good enough. You think showing up on Sunday mornings is fine. You haven't picked up your Bible since last Easter. You couldn't tell me the last time you read an entire chapter of the Bible in one sitting. The last time you prayed? Well, yesterday at lunch. All those things are good if you like this. Well, God, even if I start to look at this light, and even if I start to take that in through my eyes, and even if I start to make that who I am, and even if I start to become a light, like, here's the reality, God. Like, I know that for me, if I begin to kind of have this light, I'm just one light. I'm just one. How am I supposed to really make a difference? I mean, that's not that good, right? Now, wait a minute, there's a few more. Now, when we come together as a church and we start to take the shroud off of the light, when we start to take the bowl off of the light, then all of a sudden there's a few more lights, and it becomes to light up the corner just a little bit. I mean, it's just a little bit. I mean, it's just a corner though, right? Now, here's the question I have for my church family. Do you want to take the light off, or do you want to sit in the darkness? And as a little experiment, just a little bit of fun this morning, I'm inviting you all to take your cell phone out. I want you to turn your flashlight on. And if you're serious about taking the bowl off of the light of Jesus, I want you to shine your light on the ceiling. I want everybody to take their phone out, and I want you to shine it on the light of the room. Everybody, take your phone out. Turn your flashlight on, and you shine it towards the ceiling. Look at that. I'm just one light, right, God? I'm just one light. But look at this place. Look how it's lit up. Look how we can make a difference in our world, in our reality. That when we decide that we're going to come together and that we're going to be the body of Jesus and we're going to take the shroud off of the light, this is what happens. Now imagine if verse 18 is real and that the harder we pursue this, the brighter our light becomes. Think about it when we get a few of these going. Think about it when everybody gets their headlamp on. When all the lights are out, when everything's on, imagine how bright we get to be. Church, I challenge you. I beg you. Don't let this be your reality. This is what we desire. Let's get out there. Let's be the church. Pray with me.